First off, let me say that blended learning is really not something new. Hindi po ito bago, hindi po ito na-develop lang over the last 2 years. This has been around for decades. Even before the pandemic, I know that many faculty members in the residential campuses have experimented with blended learning. Such as the flipped classroom. Ano po, I remember some friends in UPLB na ginagawa nila itong flipped classroom. Yung flipped classroom po, the traditional learning experience is inverted. So teachers share the lecture and resources online, which is usually outside the class time. And classroom time is just reserved for class discussion and interactive projects. So before pandemic, may mga gumagawa na po nito. So ginagamit nyo before, alam ko yung Edmodo. So you upload your learning resources online and then you require students to go through the materials before the class discussion. So hindi po ito bago, ano? But I guess one of the main drawbacks why blended learning did not really progress or prosper was because of the limitation in terms of technology and connectivity. So marami pong nagrereklamo na teachers na ang hirap naman mag-upload kasi walang internet connection, walang hindi available yung magandang platform, etc. So I think isa yun sa mga drawbacks so bakit hindi ito nag-prosper. Pero I just want to highlight na ito pong gagawin nyo is not something new. This has been around for a long time. Siguro ang medyo kakaiba lang ngayon ay yung limitation when it comes to face-to-face. Synchronous session. So magiging mainly synchronous online sessions po siguro. So yun po siguro ang magiging kaibahan. But ito pong current scenario natin ngayon, because of the pandemic, masasabi ko na one of the advantages, if I may call it, of the pandemic was the acceleration in technology adoption. So in various sectors of society po ito, from business sector to education sector. Before pandemic, parang ang hirap-hirap po pag sinabi mo online. Parang nag-refuse na agad ng mga tao to do things online. Pero because of the pandemic, naging catalyst po ito for technological advancements. Si McKinsey po, there was a study by McKinsey in 2022, which shows how in 3 months, COVID-19 has caused an increase of e-commerce penetration that would normally take 10 years. So prior pandemic, we all know that meron naman na po nagpapa-order online, di ba? Food, clothes, and stuff. Kasi nandiyan naman yung Amazon and all. Pero for us, it was kind of far-fetched, for many people. And we think of it as something na hindi necessity but a luxury. So parang hindi siya accessible to many people. But we have seen how online purchases has become the new norm in just a matter of few months. And this also goes for e-learning. So may isang study rin po in 2020, although prior to COVID-19, e-learning was already growing at 100% growth rate per year. Pero during the COVID-19, when COVID-19 struck us, it has really become the catalyst. So it has achieved e-learning adoption in 4 months, what would normally have taken 10 years. Kami po sa UPOU, we have been espousing blended learning for the longest time. In fact, because of the RA 10650 po, ito yung expanded Open Distance E-Learning Act. We have been going around the country and the region promoting e-learning and blended learning. Pero hindi po siya masyadong kinakagat ng karamihan kasi kumbaga parang it's good to know, it's good to know that you'll be able to do blended learning in the future. Pero hindi nila iniisip na may urgency ng matter na yun. But then, when the pandemic struck us, everything changed. So ito na po yung ating bagong normal. And here we are, and there is no really going back. And many faculty members have personally experienced the affordances of technology-enhanced or enabled learning, and this is the moving forward of universities across the globe, including UP. So ano po ba tong blended learning na to? The simplest definition of the term blended learning is the use of traditional classroom teaching methods together with the use of online learning for the same students studying the same content in the same course. According to Saliba, Rankin, and Cortes, blended learning refers to a strategic and systematic approach to combining times and modes of learning, integrating the best aspects of face-to-face and online interaction using appropriate information communication technology. And according to Garrison and Vaughan, it is a thoughtful fusion of face-to-face and online learning experiences. So blended learning is a formal education program in which a student learns, at least in part, through online learning, with some element of student control over time, place, path, and/or pace, at least in part in a supervised brick-and-mortar location away from home. And the modalities along each student's learning path within a course or subject are connected to provide an integrated learning experience. Okay, so sinasabi po dito na this is a combination of the traditional and the online mode of learning. So ano naman po itong para lang meron tayong common understanding of what online learning is. So when we talk of online learning, it is any form of learning conducted partly or wholly over the internet. So sometimes this is referred to as e-learning. So distance education is different from online learning. In distance education, there are distance education universities that do not use online learning. UPOU po, yung first generation of distance education, we used to develop and produced and printed materials or instructional modules, and these are sent to our students all over the country and some abroad. And we conduct once a month face-to-face session. So that's a form of distance education. So, but then in 2007 the UPOU decided to shift fully online. So ito na po yung ginagamit namin delivery mode, online learning. So any learning conducted partly or wholly over the internet. And just for context, when we talk of open and distance learning naman, this combines the methodology of distance education with the concepts of open learning and flexible learning. So it emphasizes the flexibility of the system to eradicate problems caused by barriers like age, geographical location, time constraints, physical challenge, and economic situation. So ito po yung mga challenges that open and distance learning tries to overcome through its various through its delivery using various instructional or various communication tools. Okay, now going back to blended learning, this figure shows the possibilities of blended learning and how it takes both worlds of face-to-face and online learning. So in traditional face-to-face learning and teaching experiences, so you have face-to-face student collaboration, you have small group work, discussion, debate, role play, project work. You have, the usual assessment, paper and pencil exam. You do project, you do essay. You have student resources such as textbooks, workbooks, lecture notes. And then, of course, the teachers conduct lecture, tutorial labs, seminar workshop. And then You have teacher-student communication. Students go to the teacher for consultation. You have, announcements during lectures or large classes, etc. And then, of course, you have individual student activities. These are reflective journals, study reading, practice questions. And then, of course, you have the off-campus or the online or virtual learning and teaching experiences. So the affordances naman itong online and virtual learning experiences is that you can have recorded lectures, webcasts, online virtual classrooms. And these are lectures that you can go back to kung hindi mo naintindihan yung lecture ng teacher mo. Then, of course, you can have student communication. You can have announcement, discussion forum, online chat, emails. You have individual activities as well, reflective journal, using a blog or wiki, e-portfolio, online practice quiz. And then, of course, you have online student collaboration. You do forum discussion, you do debate, role play, you have small group work. I'm not sure if you have tried yung wiki or online meeting room, creating, sharing learning resources using mind maps or social bookmarking sites. Of course, you have student resources. These are online study guide, web link, online self-paced activity, online calendar, and then assessment. There are online tests, electronic submission, etc. And then you can actually overlap this, and this is the blended learning or blended environment. So you can blend time, example, face-to-face versus recorded lectures. You can blend place, small group tutorial on campus versus online discussion forum. You can blend people. So you can have podcast of guest lecturers or virtual classroom to include both on-campus and off-campus students. And you can also blend resources and activities. So you have textbook versus online readings, in-class versus online quiz. So ang dami pong possibilities for you to do when it comes to blending. Now, if we compare blended learning with the previous instructional modes that I have mentioned, like online learning and open distance learning, blended learning sits somewhere in between the traditional classroom teaching and open and distance learning. And there could be several variations of blended learning along the continuum, depending on the amount of time spent in class and out of class, and how the in-person and online components are organized and conducted. Now, the reason for blending can be categorized into three, according to Graham, according to purpose, according to Graham. So a blend is said to be enhancing when it is used to supplement traditional pedagogy, as well as to increase students' access and program flexibility. When we talk of enhancing blend naman, enabling blend, you improve student experiences and learning outcomes and enhancing blend, you improve student experiences and learning outcomes and enhance digital literacy. And the highest purpose of blending is what we call transformative blending, which is aimed at changing pedagogy so learners could play a more active role in the construction of knowledge. So examples of a transformative model is to foster lifelong learning or to develop learners who are able to contribute to the generation of knowledge. So ito yung mas gusto nating purpose or reason for blended learning. Now, going to the models of blended learning according to VPAA. So if you have with you your memo, so we can go through the various models of blended learning. So according to the VPAA memo, there can be blended learning models. So first is the blended online learning model. This is fully online. We call this at UPOU BOL, blended online learning. And, this is actually what we have been, the UPOU has been running a training program on BOL to SUCs through a project. So this is what we are doing right now, blended online learning model or BOL, model 1. This is fully online. And it combines synchronous online learning and synchronous online learning. So yung fully online ito, the synchronous learning is still online. So you use web conferencing applications. So siguro for UP, UP LB and the rest of UP units, we can make use of Zoom kasi meron naman tayong libreng video conferencing. But then again, you can also use other video conferencing like Google Meet, etc. But I think the important reminder here is for you to record your synchronous online learning so that you can upload it in your learning management system so that those students who are not able to participate due to various reasons. Reasons can be because of the pandemic, or can be other health concerns, or it can be internet connectivity, or other economic reasons. So you can record them, upload them so that they will not be put at a disadvantage. So they can still access your lecture and the synchronous online learning that transpired even after the time of the lecture. And then you combine with the asynchronous online learning. The asynchronous online learning make use of a learning management system. So I think for UPLB, the recommended learning management system is Canvas. So for all faculty members, you, I think, are required to have a Canvas account, study Canvas, populate the course site with your content, learning activities, and ensure that there's a seamless connection and integration between your synchronous online learning and your asynchronous online learning. So this is something that I would like to highlight. Di bali na pong paulit-ulit, pero importante po ito. Huwag po natin i-treat yung ating synchronous online learning as if it's a separate activity from asynchronous online learning. So in synchronous online learning, pwede po kayo mag-lecture, pero kung nandun na po yung content na yon sa inyong asynchronous, then you can probably design it in a different way. So you can probably have class discussion or project activities that you do during your synchronous online learning. Importante po na magkaiba yung ginagawa ninyo sa synchronous and yung asynchronous. But they should be complementing each other. Hindi po pwede na magkahiwalay at magkaiba totally yung ginagawa ninyo or not related at all, yung synchronous at saka yung asynchronous online learning. So dito po in this blended online learning or model 1, wala po ditong in-person or face-to-face session. Wala pong physical appearance ng estudyante in a brick-and-mortar setting. So purely online po ang nangyayari, but there is a synchronous online learning. So this is actually not something new because many of you, many of the faculty members in residential campuses have been doing this during the remote online learning mode. So ito po yung inadapt ng karamihan. Although meron po akong mga kakilala na iba rin yung approach nila. Pero karamihan po ng naririnig ko na paggawa ng remote teaching and learning is through the blended online learning model. Pero I just want to highlight po again the importance of, at the end of this short course, the importance of having or developing a course pack that is really pedagogically fit and suited for a blended learning. So, yung po sigurong first 2 semesters natin during the pandemic, parang okay pa na kasi nag-a-adjust tayo. So sanay tayo na nagle-lecture and then we just upload our learning resources online. Ngayon po, medyo kailangan natin ibahin yung ating design ng ating courses. So kailangan po talaga na yung learning activities are really engaging. Kasi base po sa ating mga observation, at na-mention na rin kanina ni Ma'am Jean, many of the learning outcomes for your courses and programs have been compromised. So kailangan po nating pag-isipan thoroughly how we will design learning activities that will really address learning outcomes of the course as well as the program, especially the learning outcomes that have been compromised. So napaka-importante po ng design. Again, I would like to highlight na huwag po tayo masyadong ma-hang up sa technology, sa use of technology, yung paggamit ng Canvas. Madali pong i-navigate para lang po siyang, we're using Facebook as a platform or using Instagram. So ganun po natin siya i-treat na madali nating matututunan kung lagi nating ginagamit. But the more important thing that we need to really consider is how these various components really played together. Yung interplay po nitong pedagogy, technology, at saka content, yun po ang mas importante. Okay. So yun po yung Model 1. And then we also have the Blended Block Learning Model 2. So it combines blocks of independent online study and intensive face-to-face sessions based on pedagogical and practical considerations. So, ang example po na binigay ng OVPAA, in a laboratory class with geographically dispersed students, in-person sessions in the laboratory can be blocked and scheduled at a particular point in the semester, and online learning takes place in the periods before and after the blocked face-to-face sessions. In addition, the class can be organized into smaller groups, and each group may have a different schedule for the intensive face-to-face sessions. There can also be more than one sequence of blocks of online study and face-to-face sessions in the semester. Example, the class can begin with a block of intensive face-to-face sessions, followed by blocks of asynchronous and synchronous online study, and then a block of face-to-face group presentations. The blended block model was implemented in some courses with limited face-to-face classes in academic year 2021-22. So this is something probably that you can design for your laboratory classes and classes with hands-on activities. So ito pong block na to, example lang po yung binigay ng VPA. So ang idea po nito really is for you to design the course in such a way na titingnan niyo po kung ano yung practical and pedagogical consideration. So for example, sa tingin ninyo during this months, marami ang estudyante na probably magkakandak din ng face-to-face session. So pwede nyo sigurong ilipat yung inyong face-to-face session. But the idea here really is for block learning. So parang intensive na face-to-face session, and then dadalhin nyo siya sa intensive online sessions, and then another intensive session na related naman dun sa actual application. So there's no one model for this block, but these are really recommendations. But kayo po ang nakakaalam nito how you will design it based on the learning outcomes ng course ninyo. Specifically, if these are laboratory courses. Doon po sa course site, there are ratings there which you can go to. The blended block learning model is not something new. This has actually been done by many universities, and this was espoused by the Commonwealth of Learning. So hindi po ito bago, and there are a number of examples that you can actually model your course from. So pwede po kayong magbasa dun sa ating course site if hindi pa masyadong malinaw yung blended block learning model. But you know, ang basic idea lang po nito really is mag-create kayo ng block of sessions. So pwedeng intensive face-to-face session followed by online sessions na related pa rin po dun sa intensive face-to-face session, or pwede rin pong baliktad. Depende po ito nga dun sa pedagogical and practical considerations. And then of course, yung pong pangatlo, this is the classic blended learning model. So this alternates or rotates face-to-face sessions and asynchronous online learning. This model includes the flipped classroom approach, where students study the learning content at home using assigned readings, pre-recorded lectures and exercises, and then do guided practice and group work during the face-to-face sessions. Ito pong model na to is best implemented when there are no or very few restrictions going to the campus for face-to-face session. So dun po sa VPAA memo, nakalagay naman po dun yung mga recommended, hindi man talaga recommended, but the ideal model depende po sa health situation. But really, dito po sa lahat ng to, ang pinaka-safe and pinaka-reliable in terms of learning continuity, of course, is the BOL or the blended online learning. Kasi hindi ka nag-worry if there will be a surge of, you know, COVID cases, if there will be an, you know, an onset of another pandemic, di natin alam. So ito pong blended online learning model is really, kumbaga parang pinaka-ideal siya in terms of continuity of learning. But yung pong blended block learning model is something that you can think of, especially for those with laboratory courses and hands-on courses na kailangan ng hands-on activity, courses with hands-on activity na kailangan na talagang gawin. So yung classic blended learning, I'm not very sure kung dapat po ba itong gawin or kung ano ba ang magiging benepisyo nito over the others. But if it is allowed and if it has been decided by your department or your program, and so these are models that you can consider. So katulad po ng nasabi kanina, wala naman pong recommend, but these are the models that your department or your program can consider. Okay, so meron po kayong question. Let me just check the chat. Okay, so mamaya po siguro we can, there are no urgent questions, we can go through them one by one. So moving on, okay, so moving on, there are different levels of blended learning. So blended learning can be implemented in different levels. So it can be in the level of activity, in the level of course, or it can be in the level of program or institutional. So blending at the activity level happens when learning activity contains both face-to-face and out-of-class components. So an example given is you're facilitating a class discussion based on a TV show that the students watched the night before. So this is an example of blending at the activity level. So you have a face-to-face class discussion, and you are basing your discussion based on a a TV show that you watched before the night. So that's an example of activity-based. And a course level blend includes a combination of in-class and out-of-class activities as part of a course. So the flipped classroom is an example of blended learning done at the course level. So in a flipped classroom, students are introduced to content at home and do their learning activities at school, which is the opposite of conventional classes where the teacher introduces the lesson at school and requires students to do their homework or other activities at home. So inverted conventional class po yung flipped classroom. So a flipped classroom starts with concept exploration, where learners are asked to, for example, watch video or listen to audio recordings or read books or online resources outside of the class. So yun po yung concept exploration. Then the students are given the opportunity to understand deeper or make meaning of the concept by asking them to reflect on the learning resources. So how do you reflect on the learning resources? So they can do reflective podcasts. They can take quizzes, they can do blogging, or they can do participate in online discussions. So these are out of class. So this can happen in the LMS or the learning platform. And then the students spend their in class time, meaning face-to-face or probably synchronous, to dive deeper by doing activities that require higher order level thinking, like personalized projects, problem-based learning experiments, or presentation. So ito po yung proseso ng blended learning, specifically yung flip blended learning. So meron munang concept exploration, and this happens out of class or probably in the virtual classroom. Then meaning making, this can still happen in the virtual classroom. So the students can do reflective podcasts, take quiz, participate in online discussion. And then the demonstration or application can happen face-to-face in class or probably in a synchronous session if it's in a blended online learning. Okay, so ito pong opportunities na to ng flipped classroom can also be adapted for a blended online learning. Okay, so let me just show this blended learning at National University of Singapore. So variations of blended learning can be seen in these 4 scenarios. So ito po yung pinapractice ng National University of Singapore. So in blended learning scenario 1, the course is taught through a combination of pre-recorded video lectures and pre-class readings or resources. So asynchronous po ito, these are done asynchronously. And then plus face-to-face tutorials or seminars or labs with deep dives. So when we talk of deep dives, ito na po yung deeper analysis. So kaya po higher order thinking skills po ito. And then we also have the blended learning scenario 2. So this is composed of online lectures. So it can be synchronous or it can be recorded. So like for this one, synchronous ito, but this is also recorded. So this is an online lecture that is both synchronous and recorded. And then followed by face-to-face tutorials, seminars, and labs, again with deep dives. So when we talk of deep dives, again, these are deeper analysis of issues, problem-based issues, and usually are higher order thinking skills. And then we have the blended learning scenario 3, which includes online lecture, either synchronous and recorded, plus online tutorials and seminars, labs with deep dives. And then lastly, we have blended learning scenario 4, which is called hybrid learning. consists of simultaneous learning, simultaneous face-to-face and online teaching, and then synchronous and recorded, and online tutorials or face-to-face tutorials with deep dives. So if you will notice po sa various scenarios of blended learning, the deep dives or the deep learning or deeper analysis of issues, concepts, and yung higher order thinking skills, importante po dun sa nangyayari during the synchronous or face-to-face tutorials or face-to-face sessions. So dapat po natin ma-maximize yung affordance na yon. But it is important that the learning resources and learning activities have prior or outside of the synchronous session are also properly designed para mailabas natin itong gantong klaseng deep dives. So makikita po natin na talagang there is a seamless integration or interaction between the synchronous and asynchronous sessions. Okay, so when we talk of blending naman at the program or institutional level, this is determining which courses will be offered face-to-face, blended, or fully online. So let me just discuss this kasi I think this is a decision that will be done by your program or your department. Kasi wala namang directive from the university on what you will do, except that it will be a blended learning approach. The decision on course mode of delivery can be based on several criteria. The first and most crucial criteria is pedagogy, or the degree to which course goals and outcomes can be best facilitated with blended or online learning. For example, conceptual courses are good candidates for blended or online learning, while skill-based or practical courses are easier than face-to-face. So, importante po itong unang criteria natin, pedagogy, or the degree to which course goals and outcomes can be best facilitated with blended or online learning. Another criterion to consider would be the student's need and context. We can prioritize the blending of courses whose students have a need for flexibility in time, place, or pace of learning, or based on the potential to reach more learners and new constituencies. For example, graduate students are mostly working while studying, which makes most graduate programs good candidates for blending. Aside from the issue of flexibility, another consideration is the students' access to technology. For example, a set of course, due to their nature, may be offered online, but unstable internet connectivity among students may require a department to adopt a blended learning instead. So these are considerations, one of very important considerations ng estudyante. That's why dito po sa ating content, if you will look at your canvas for our asynchronous session, learner analysis is one of the steps dun po sa planning course content. Importante na alam ninyo ang konteksto ng estudyante nyo, specifically when it comes to technology access and technology accessibility. Now, in certain situations, choosing courses based upon instructor strength and interest is strategic. Some institutions start their blended learning programs in departments or programs where there is a great interest among faculty members. But again, we are in a different times. All of us now, or all of you, is required to do blended learning. So kumbaga, before, okay lang yung interest lang to ng faculty, pero ngayon, this is really a requirement. Because of the current global public health crisis pa rin. And lastly, of course, there's the issue of cost effectiveness. So you can choose to blend courses that use available resources. For example, you can start your blending program with courses where the learning materials or packages have already been adequately developed. So when you plan within your program or department, you can probably do an inventory during the past 2 years. What are the existing learning resources that you and your colleagues have developed, and which you can still use for the blended learning. So okay, so these are actually criteria suggested by Wallace and Young, and this was in 2010. So but still very relevant. Okay, so blended learning at the program level, mixed mode. So let's consider this example of categorizations of courses primarily based on pedagogy. So as you can see, bridge and general education can be effectively delivered online. Major courses which traditionally have been delivered through lectures can be taught online or blended. The content and some formative assessments can be done online, while more in-depth and collaborative learning activities and high-stakes assessment can be done in person. So itong physical education and practicum courses and laboratory courses can be taught face-to-face or blended. So again, laboratory courses are more effectively and efficiently done face-to-face. Alam naman natin itong lahat. And we really do recognize na nagkaroon ng na-compromise yung ilang learning outcomes of the laboratory courses because of the lack of face-to-face meetings. And NSTP courses can be online or blended. These examples show that even if a big part of the course involves demonstration or practical or psychomotor skills, there are parts of it that can still be taught out of class. So pag makikita natin dito, so itong dalawang to, blended and online, the blended online learning itong model na to. And then for some laboratory courses and practicum courses and some PE courses should be taught in person. So this is an example of blended learning at the program level. So you have to mix in-mix mode siya. Okay. Now, malapit na po tayong matapos, and then let's try to entertain questions from the group. Okay, so how do we make blended learning work? So importante po in technology access. Technology integration in itself is not necessarily blended learning. So paulit-ulit ko po itong mini-mention, because why do I mention this repeatedly? Because in my experience in conducting training, yung mga questions po ng faculty members, laging nakahang up dun sa paggamit ng Canvas or nung learning management system. Again, this is a skill which you can learn. So these are digital skills which you can learn. So wag po tayo masyadong hang up dun. But let us really focus on the interplay of other components. So if online learning is only a minor component of a classroom-based course without offering students the independence, convenience, and interaction opportunities of being online, it may not really be a blended learning system, but simply a case of technology integration. So dapat po really we should blend yung pong technology, yung content, yung pong affordances na binibigay ng blended learning. Otherwise, baka po ang ginagawa lang natin is really a technology integration and not really blended learning. And then another thing to consider is design. So creating an effective blended learning environment means making appropriate choices and overcoming the challenges that come with the use of technology. So ibig sabihin po, if there's a limitation in terms of access, internet connectivity, then we should include it in our design, how this content will reach our students. So, importante po na maipasok natin yung needs and consideration na yun in order for us to support the meaningful learning experience of our students. Okay. And then safety and security. So we should create awareness of cyber malice and ensure security interventions against unethical learning practices, academic dishonesty, identity theft, and bullying. Now that the online learning component is now a norm, because we will be doing blended learning, importante po na this consideration is taken seriously, yung pong safety and security ng ating mga estudyante. We have encountered or experienced at UPOU some students who have really been bullied in the cyberspace. So kailangan po natin silang i-protect. And then, of course, skill development, support, and training. Both students and teachers must have technological literacy and competence with technology applications. So, ulitin ko po ito kasi hindi po enough na yung estudyante lang ang may digital skills. Importante din po kayo as teachers, really must have the digital and technology literacy. And hindi lang po ito in the use of the technology itself, but more specifically then dun sa literacy itself ng mga digital resources, which we will actually include in the discussion in our module 3, I think, of this short course. And then lastly is motivation. So students need adequate motivation when engaging in a wide range of often shifting learning modalities, some of which may require significant skill development. So yung po again, babalikan ko lang yung comment dun sa self-introduction forum na ang hirap po mag-engage ng mga estudyante. So yun po yung common complaint or concerns na ni-raise doon. So we have to consider na in order for them to be engaged, they need adequate motivation. So how this will come in various forms. This can be in learning activities, collaborative learning environment that will really encourage them to participate, and then they will be motivated to engage in your course. Okay. So ito pong these concerns and issues how to make blended learning work are really from recent research on teacher perspectives conducted po ito ng Athabasca University and Commonwealth of Learning. So they did a comprehensive study on how to make blended learning work, and these are some of the considerations na lumabas po dun sa kanilang research. So ulitin ko lang po, technology access, design of the course, safety and security, skill development, support and training, as well as motivation, so that students will really have a meaningful learning experience, given that we are into a different mode of learning now. Okay, so I think that ends the the input part, and this slide is licensed under Creative Commons, so I will just share this to Catal for uploading in the, I will just upload this in the course site.